Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. My last video produced several questions and messages about some of the products that I use. Either the ink boxes that I make and show like this, or the trays, my ephemera trays. And these are the ephemera trays that I use, and where I got them and how to get a hold of them and that type of thing. So I did a little bit of research because I get these at Craft Warehouse in the Pacific Northwest, and that's not everywhere. But I did find out, I went online and I went to their website, craftwarehouse.com, and then I searched for wood tray, and this particular one popped up for wood tray. Now, it's not the same as the other. I don't know if you can see that there, but this one is a shallower tray, and it has fewer compartments. Basically, it's got one long compartment, well, two longer compartments and three of the smaller compartments. And I want to say these little box compartments are about, well, let's see, they're almost exactly 4 inches. So if you were wanting to use this type of tray, you could go to craftwarehouse.com and look for wood tray, and I've got ephemera in there obviously, but you could make it work for this. It would hold it pretty well. The 3-inch one, it would wiggle around a little bit because there's room, but it could still work. I mean, it would hold it more than just being free floating on a desk. Of course, this is not quite double the width. I want to say this is what, 12 inches wide-ish, maybe? Yeah, it's about, well, 11 3/4 inches wide and probably, what, 20 plus inches long. So it's a little bit big for many people's desks to hold their glue and ink and those kinds of supplies, but it might be exactly what you want for some of your ephemera bits. Now, I built my craft room. Well, okay, I didn't build the craft room. When we bought this ranch house, it had in the garage, so you go out like you're going to the garage, and it framed into walls, and that's my craft room essentially. So I built the things that go in it to hold it, and I built a shelf that would hold these two boxes perfectly, simply because I knew that's what I wanted. And it was after the fact, after I did the other stuff. Now this box is the same exact size, and I looked for both wood tray and wood box, and I did not see this one on it. It's got 20 compartments, and whereas this wood tray, it's about, I don't know, about an inch, not quite an inch, 3/4 of an inch. Can you see it there? I don't even know if you can see it. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick. Okay, so it's kind of shallow. If you have a lot of ephemera or deep ephemera, it may or may not work. Whereas this one is much, here, I'll turn it to the side. It's much deeper. It is, I don't even know, what is it? 2 inches. So it's got a lot more depth to it. Now, you could use this one, except, look, the ink doesn't fit. These are about, I don't know, there are 3 1/4-ish and then 2 1/2 inch. So you couldn't put this in here. You could hold your other bits and pieces, but again, it's not designed to fit it like an ink box is. So it would work, but it may or may not be ideal. However, like I said, for me, it works really well to use this combination for my ephemera because that's the system that I like. I tried the little folders and booklets and such, and they're adorable, but it just didn't work for me. And then what I do to keep from smooshing the ephemera between them is I just got a piece of cardboard and covered it with bookbinding cloth. And so when I stack this, I'll put this piece of cardboard in between so it doesn't catch or move any of my ephemera bits. You know, I know that the ones underneath are safe. And then I just take this whole piece and I put it up on my shelf. And that's what I'm going to do now to get it out of the way. Okay, so that's it. Craftwarehouse.com, wood tray and or wood box. And there's a whole bunch of different sizes and varieties. So maybe that one would be too big for you, but one of the other options they have might be okay. And they're anywhere from $20 and less. So they're not super spendy. Another option, and then this is another one of those trays. It's a long one that I spray painted black. And what I did is I wanted some bigger pieces. So like maybe I'll take this one if I'm going to Okay, not that I actually do it, but if I went to an evening crop or something like that, I would take just what I wanted to work on. And it gives me, I cut out some of these partitions so that I could have longer spots. Okay, you can see I've got a couple of them cut out, and this one I cut out several of them just to give me longer spaces, more room to work. Now again, I wouldn't use this for an ink tray, but for an ephemera box, it's awesome. And all I did to cut these pieces out is I got an oscillating saw, which is kind of a cool tip saw. I don't know, I've had mine a while, maybe $100 or so. And you just go, you slice, you take the straight edge of this and you just slice straight down the side, and it cuts those little bits out. Okay, but I get it. Not everybody likes power tools or has power tools, or honestly, if you're not comfortable with power tools, it's, you know, to buy it for one or two things is probably not very cost effective. But if you have access to those, maybe that's a good option for you. And again, I bought these from the physical store at Craft Warehouse. I did not see them on their website, and I've had them for a year-ish or so. So they may have something like that. I did go to Joann, I went to Hobby Lobby, and I went to Michael's, and I did not see anything similar. They had some shadow box type things with compartments, and you could unscrew the glass domed lid and take that off, and it would give you a choice. But I found something that I think might work, and so I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so this is a little this particular week, at least in the US or my part of the US, at Hobby Lobby, the woodcraft stuff is 40% off. So let's see, this was $5.99 minus 40%, whatever the math is on that. 6 times 5 is 30, so it was $3. So this was $3 off. So it was, no, it wasn't, because, yeah, that's right, it would be $3 off. So there's this little tray, and it is still a little bit bigger than my ink boxes, right? I mean, my ink box can fit inside of it, which is kind of cool, right? You could actually do something like this, and then if you wanted a little more space, it doesn't fit there, but maybe a ruler or scissors or something to keep things tidy on your desk. It's not an exact fit, but it could work. And here's what I found. There were several of these in their woodcraft section. They had them with the alphabets, so there were more boxes, and the alphabets were in 3 sizes, some little itty bitty ones, bigger and bigger, and I think this was the largest size. So this was $8 minus 40%. And it has wood numbers in it. So I could take those numbers out, right? And it is a pretty close fit. It's not exact, but it's close enough even for me, okay? So I could, again, it's not going to be exact, and you know, you put your glue in one, you put your ink dauber in one. This is pretty shallow. It's maybe, what, half an inch? Yeah, it's a half an inch thick. Okay, it's over that. It's 5/8 inch thick. So it's not going to hold these things up or tight, but it'll hold them in place so that you've got it tidy and organized if you want to. And again, this will fit on most people's desks, and it will hold the 4-inch ink box and the 3-inch ink box, and it doesn't hold it tight, but I had a plan, so I have a workaround for that. Okay, so maybe you like this size, you like the handles because it's handy to move around if you're going to take it to another portion of your house. You can also at Hobby Lobby, these were, I don't know, they look like they're about, let's see, size 1.5 inch by 36. So this is 1.5, I'm sorry, not 1.5, I lied, 1/2 inch square, right? And it's 36 inches long, and they were $2 at 40% off, so $1 something. Okay, they're not perfect, but you can use this to cut it down and divide. Okay, now, Corey, not everybody likes power tools. Not everybody has power tools. Totally get that. Not everybody likes them like I do. But you can easily get something like this. Like, this is an old miter box. I've had this forever. I never use it anymore, and I think I've given away the saw. And you can even get something like this. It's just a simple little hacksaw. This is easy wood to cut, so this will cut it. You can use a clamp system to hold your wood, right? You just want something to hold the wood in place so you can cut it. This is just a, clamp it on the table, clamp the wood down, and then cut, maybe like this, cut where I need it to cut, okay? You can go to Harbor Freight or Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart or any place with a hardware section and get, a miter box and it usually comes with a saw that works, because you can see here, I just grabbed my hacksaw. You can see it wouldn't actually go down all the way to the bottom to cut it because it's not the right saw. But if you have a hacksaw, this will work fine. This isn't heavy duty hardwood. It's easy to cut. You just have to be able to clamp it some way. So for example, in this particular case, I could decide what size I want my, I'll just throw that one on the floor. Decide where I want it cut, mark it, and then I'll hold it on this, and then I'll just cut it, right? Easy to do. In fact, I'll probably end up doing that for this just to show you. So if you don't have a swing arm compound miter saw and a table saw, well, you only use a table saw for the ink boxes, but if you don't have those power tools, you can use a couple hand tools, probably $10 or less for the set, or right around that, and you've got something. Also, many craft stores like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, I didn't look in there specifically for it, but in their hobby wood section, they might have a hobby size miter box and saw, which would be a little bit smaller and probably perfect. Dremel tool, if you've got a Dremel tool, they have a saw blade option and you can use that. So you don't have to have power tools to make this work. All right, that's my whole point there. Okay, so I can't get a hold of the tray I want, or I'm impatient and I don't want to wait. I can just use it like this and get a couple of these pieces and make this work for what I want. Or I can get a tray, something like this, or maybe you can have them separate, completely up to you. But what I would suggest is, if you're going to go this route or something similar to this, take your pieces out, use some wood glue. Hot glue is temperature sensitive, so it can pop off easily. Honestly, I have hot glue gun and I use it for certain things, but it's usually to hold something in place while the good glue is drying. I happen to like Gorilla wood glue because I've had good luck with Gorilla adhesive products, but if you've got Type Bond or Elmer's wood glue or whatever, but you're working with wood, this is made for wood, I'd go with a little bit of wood glue. So I'd take the plastic off, take the pieces out, glue this down. Now, wood glue does not set right away. It has a fairly quick set time, but it says 15 minutes on mine. I don't know. It's not like art glitter glue or hot melt glue that dries immediately. Just put it in, maybe put something on top of it to weight it down just a little bit to make sure you don't have a bubble gap in there, and then let it dry. And then once it's dry, as long as you used glue correctly or the correct amount, you're going to be good to go. Now, some wood glues recommend that you glue both pieces. So it would say put glue here, and then put it down. And you could even clamp it if you chose to. I can't read this because the print's too little, but if I remember correctly, you only have to, with this glue, you only have to glue one side. And it will ooze. I mean, it's glue. So I don't generally put it all the way up to the edge. I'll, an inch or so in, and I'll put glue, right? And then I'll put it down. I'll put something, oh, here we go. I'll put something heavy on top of it and let it dry. And then it's going to be good. All right, but Corey, I really, really want to make a spot for this and a spot for this because I don't have an ink box, or I live in the UK or someplace else where shipping is astronomical to get it there. So I want to do something like that. Okay, cool. So let's do it. All right. I'm going to look in here. Oh, and I didn't bring a tape measure in. Darn it, darn it, darn it. What I generally do is I'll put my tape measure down, and you'll see that a tape measure doesn't go right up to the corner because you want to get this as close as possible to exact. Doesn't have to be perfect. You get a little wiggle room, but you want it to be close. So what I do is I put my tape measure in, and then I will grab, here, let's go like something like this. You can see the same concept on a regular ruler, right? So you know how a tape measure folds up? Well, and you can't get it the exact measurement. So what you do is you put your tape measure down, and then you clamp this on the end of the tape measure, right? And then you can push it up to exactly the end, right? Well, okay, so exactly the end. So you get the exact right measurement. It's exactly what you want. And then you lift it up and you see where it is on the tape measure. So you know the perfect measurement for the inside of that box. For the sake of this, because I'm far enough away from the camera that I won't be able to see those itty bitty numbers anyway, I'm going to go with close enough is good enough. But if I were doing this for my desk, I'd probably take the time and do it correctly. So you can see here, this is going to be 7 7/8. I mean, it's almost exactly 7 7/8. So when I'm making my first cut for this wood, I want to make it at 7 7/8. Sorry, I'm moving everything around because my work area isn't that big. And I want to show you how to do it so that you can do it too. Now, I haven't done a prototype like I normally do with this. I'm kind of winging it, but I have a picture in my mind and I've worked with wood enough to at least guesstimate that it's going to work correctly. All right, so I'm going to use my ruler. I said it was 7 7/8, right? So from the edge, 7 7/8. I'm going to make sure those are the edge of my ruler and the edge of my wood are the same. And I'm going to mark it at 7 7/8 because I want to cut it exactly on that line to make it fit. Now, if you cut it a little short, you can use wood fill, but it's not going to be as sturdy. If you cut it a little long, just sand it off with a little bit of sandpaper. So it's always a better idea to cut long than cut short. I mean, in a perfect world, you cut it perfect, and that's why I use a table saw. No, I don't. I don't use a table saw for this. That's why I use my miter saw. Oh, okay. See, this miter box, I guess maybe they all do it. I don't know. I haven't used a miter box in a long time. See how there's a little lip? It allows me to, moving everything around here, it allows me to put it over the edge and have it lay flat. It kind of like, see if you can see that, it holds it in place. So that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. And then I'm going to try to get it in the right spot so you can see it. I'm going to put this piece of wood here, right? And in a perfect world, I'd clamp that down, but I'm going to use my arm for that. And then I'm going to cut, let's see if I can bring this down a little bit and zoom it in. So I'm going to cut it on that spot. I'm going to hold it tight and cut it on that spot. And it's going to take a little bit, but that's okay because it's going to take maybe a minute or so. See, the hacksaw is just fine for this type of wood. And again, I would probably clamp this if I were doing it to keep forever and ever, but this is working. Yeah, so you can see my box is wiggling because this isn't perfect, but that's okay. Put my hands up on top. Sorry, my big old hand's in the way, but I need to hold this down and I want you to be able to see the blade. Okay, there we go. Again, oh, there you go. See, look how straight that isn't. That's okay, we'll make it work. We'll put that on the bottom. Again, I don't generally use hand tools, I use power tools, but you can use hand tools, and that's my point here. All right, so I want this one here, and I want this one here, right? And I want to make sure it fits. So then what I would do, you can see, it does actually fit, right? You can't see that I didn't cut it perfectly straight because I put the curved piece on the bottom, okay? And I can put it right there in these two. Now these are going to wiggle a little bit, but I could come in and take this measurement and cut and do the same thing, right? I'm going to measure from the edge of the wood to where I've got this spot done, and then I could make it work. Basically, it may not be as convenient as some of the others, but it works. Now here, I probably wouldn't do it this way because look, even with I cut the boxes that I do to. I use 3/4 inch plywood on purpose because that means it's flat or flush on the top. And this is a little bit deeper, so it's not going to be flat or flush. You could put another layer in there. You could put chipboard or something to build it up so that it is flush, or maybe it doesn't matter to you that it's flush. I probably wouldn't put it against this edge because of the handle, but maybe I'd put it like right here. Some chipboard, make it flush when the lid's off so that I can just tap my stamp on it. Part of the reason for this is the convenience of being able to do that. So I'd cut a second one of these, right, put it in, put some chipboard down on the bottom, and boom, it does what I want it to do. So you can make it work for you. You don't have to have power tools, you don't have to have anything fancy, and you can make it work. Now this could be either an ink box for the top of your desk, or it could be an ephemera tray, just depending on what your needs are. And one of the reasons I was thinking about this is, one, I got a message this morning that somebody said it would have been more convenient if I had, when I first came out with the ink box over a year ago, probably about a year and a half ago now, if I just come out with my latest version, right? If I had just whoops, here we go, let's move back up. If I had started with this one, well, this was kind of an evolving process, and as my needs changed a little bit, I made something bigger and more. But still, the initial box, it had 1 inch or 1 spot for 3-inch ink pad and 1 spot for a dauber. It's tiny, and so for some people that's perfect, and that's all they want. You know, different needs for different folks, and so that's basically what it's about. Anyway, I'm sorry I didn't come up with this initially, and you know what? Probably realistically, I'll change my mind again, and I'll add something else or something. But for now, this is what works for me. And a lot of you said that you liked this size, the 3x4, and so those are the ones I'm going to make. And I'm going to show you why I'm not going to also do the 3x3, because this fits in there fine. Now it wiggles this way back and forth, but it's snug enough fit here that it works really well. And then if you wanted to, you could put something else in that extra spot, or just makes it easy to take it in and out if you're a person who changes colors. Like I use ground espresso and walnut stain. Walnut stain 95%, ground espresso 5%, and the other colors rarely. So for me, this works great. But there are people like my sweet friend Gail. She likes to go with different colors. You know, she uses vintage photo a lot, but she's also, there's a new mauve color that she really likes, and she'll switch up colors. So maybe, you know, having some flexibility in that would be best for her. Everybody's got different needs. All right, so I am making more of these using just what I've got, and they're all going to be the exact same thing. I'm not taking custom orders for a couple reasons, but mostly because when I list them for somebody, I've taken a custom order, I make the right size holes and such. Somebody else goes in and buys it. And I don't always know because of similar initials or names, or people use screen names or pen names, and it just became problematic. So I'm just going to make them and list them. They're going to be the 3x4. And when I say 3x4, that's not the total size. The total size is 5.5 inches wide by, what did I say last night? About 12 inches long, roughly, maybe 12, 13 inches long, whatever it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Less than 12 inches long, okay? And they're going to be just like this, with a little spot here and the two ink holes. I am going to make this size hole for the Ramblin' Crafter Dauber. And if you don't have the Ramblin' Crafter Dauber, that's totally okay. It also fits the Distress Collage Medium. This is a 1.5 inch hole, and it fits some other types of glue. I think it's a Barely Art glue that it fits, and then there's another one. So I'm going to have 2 of the 1.5 inch holes. Okay, so if you have that kind of a tool, this is a great spot. I'm also going to have 3 of the 1.25 inch. Now, like my 4 ounce, or is this 8 ounce? Whatever this is, 2 ounce, I lied. 2 ounce art glitter glue, the standard Yoo-hoo stick. Oh, the bigger glues fit in here too, the larger glue sticks. And then the standard scrapbook.com tool or Tim Holtz dauber tool fits there. And then there'll be 1 1.75 inch for people who use the Fabri-Tac, the 4 ounce Fabri-Tac, and or the Sugar Bell bottles. So I am going to be making some of those, or finishing them up. I've started them, and those will be listed in my shop. Now maybe, like yesterday I showed that I used, you know, because, well, there went that stamp. I keep my little stamp in my little cube here, and it works really well for holding those in place, so I don't have to reach across my desk. But maybe you don't use those. Well, it also works for a glue pickup square, and I use this quite frequently with the art glitter glue. And, or maybe you use this distressed tool from Tim Holtz. I don't know about you. I keep it hanging on a hook on my wall. But this thing disappears like nobody's business. So maybe having a little spot right here for you would be handy. Whatever. That's kind of what I'm going to do it with it for. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through, and I'm going to also walk you through an alternative. Now, I talked a little bit about how you can use those trays and make them work as well to hold your glues and inks and such. But I had another idea, and I went to Maud today for lunch because I wanted to, and I thought, well, you know what? That's just a little bit, right? Just a little bit wider. Why couldn't I make this work? Now, I would not use cardboard because if I'm going to go to all the trouble to cut this and make this work, I want it to last longer than cardboard's going to last. But I could use chipboard, okay? You're not going to be able to do this with without power tools if you're using wood. It's just, it's not realistic. But if you needed something temporary, or you want something until you can either get or afford or have somebody make it for you, you could use chipboard, okay? And you would use like a regular circle punch wouldn't be sturdy enough, right, to go through. And I'm pretending this is chipboard, even though it's cardboard. But you could use something like your Creative Memories circle tools, and it's not going to give you a perfect or great cut the first time, but it will work. So ignore my pizza from there. I get a mini Tristan in case anybody cares. So let's just say I want that size hole. That hole's really big, but that's all right. I'm just using this as an example. You could do something like this. Now you can see it's not going to poke out because that popped up. It is not designed to cut through something that thick, but it could give you a start, and then you can use your X-Acto knife, right, and come in and finish cutting it. Use that as your guide. Come in and finish cutting it. Now I'm cutting at an angle, so it's not going to be a perfect circle, and it's going to be a mess, but you can see, okay? And then I flip it over, and I'm going to have my circles, and then I could use that same black bookbinding tape. I'm not going to take the time to cut it all the way out because I think you see what I mean. So I've got my circle here, and then my glue, I just pop it in there. So it would work temporarily, but if I were going to go to this trouble, I would probably get chipboard. And it doesn't, you can buy chipboard at most craft stores, but like this is well, here you go. This is layers of chipboard glued together, right? And this was on a spiral bound something, or this was the back of it. Looks like it was the back of a notepad. But I would take, let's pretend I have my dimensions. And you do it the same way you do any of our boxes and stuff. You score where you want it, however big you want it. You score, score, score. You can use your score pal. You can use just a ruler or a straight edge and score it with, a tool like this so that it gives you some fold, and then cut out the corners so that it folds up, just like a box would, right? And then when you've got your dimensions exactly where you want them and you know it's going to work, well, here, let's make a little hole, okay? And then once you've got them folded and happy, unfold it again, and then do your circles. Again, I'm not going to get it exact or perfect because this isn't designed to go through paper, not designed to go through chipboard. But you can see can you see? I've got the start of it, and then I can come in with my X-Acto knife and finish it, and I could have an ink box that way. So there's an option for you if you don't have access to power tools or an ink box. It's a plan B or a plan C or whatever plan number we're on. All right. On that note, it's been a while. Oh, I had one more. Ooh. Okay. I also got this at Craft Warehouse today. My granddaughter needs an advent calendar for candies because she does. So I got this, and all Christmas stuff, I think it was 40% off. So it was whatever it is when it's 40% off. So $17, 40% off $17. And yes, I can do the math, but no, I'm just not going to. All right. So I was thinking this would work also for ephemera, right? Now, it's deeper for sure. This is probably a 3-inch box is my guess. I was wrong. It's 2 1/4 inches. It just seems like it's 3 inches. And so it's kind of sturdy because it's already chipboard, right? And you don't have to put the boxes in this way. You can put the boxes in this way, and it makes it even more sturdy. Now, obviously, it's not going to work for an ink pad, but it would hold my dauber, and it would hold my glue, and it would hold those things. So it could conceivably work depending on what you need. Just a thought, just another option, just another way to look at things that you may already have. Now, there are other kinds of Christmas advent calendar things. Some of them are narrower and smaller than this, and that might be a great option for you too. But again, it's not going to be the 3 inches, so keep that in mind. All right. I mentioned when I first came out with the ink box, I showed how I made them, okay? And I've changed it a whole lot since then. I mean, it's very similar, but I'm going to go through and show exactly how I make them. For those of you who live in Australia, and shipping was like $42, it was just crazy talk. And I shipped them to the UK, and I want to say it was between $25 and $35. I don't remember now, it's been a bit. But it's really, really spendy. Or maybe you just don't want to spend that much, because to ship these US, I can get the bubble mailer flat rate, which is $9 and some 85 or something like that. So $10, okay? So I can ship them for $10. But the materials to make this, and you think, Corey, it's just wood. Oh, no. It's 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and then it's hemlock fir, and then it's the brad nails, and then it's the bits for this, whether you use a spade bit or what I use now is a Forstner bit, and then it's the stain, and then it's the foam or the shelf liner, the non-skid shelf liner, and then the glue to put the non-skid shelf liner on, and then it's the wood fill. I mean, it just all adds up. So they're, just depending on where I bought the wood and the quality of the plywood, they're between $25 and $35 in materials to make. So if you're going to go out and buy everything you need, it costs, I don't know, probably $75, $85 to get the materials, if not more, depending on the things you've already got. So just keep that in mind if you're going to have somebody make them. Now, if you're using materials you have on hand and just salvaging what you've got, well, obviously that's going to bring the cost way, way down. But I want to walk you through how I do it, and I'll do that really quick. So if you're not even remotely interested in seeing how they're made, now is a great time to say, see you in the next video, okay? But if you want, I'll walk you through it. Okay, so the first step to make these particular boxes, well, not this one, but the newest, my latest iteration of the box, this one, the one I like and the one I'm making more of and the one that people seem to think that they would enjoy, okay? Let me move out just a little bit and up just a little bit. Sorry about that. Lighting in the cave, not so great actually, so I'm trying to make it as good as I can. All right, so to make these boxes, first thing I do is I go to Home Depot or Lowe's or a local wood store, and I buy a sheet of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood. Now there's a whole bunch of different grades, and you'll notice there's different qualities basically. This one was a higher quality, but you got to be careful. Even in the higher quality, I want to say this is an oak finish. Sometimes the veneer, because it's plywood, is really, really thin. And so when you sand it, what happens is you go through to the next layer of plywood. So it's not always a great idea to get the wood finish that you want, or the type of wood that you want so much on the outer edges. Get a decent quality, because you want this piece to be a little bit thicker, so when you sand it, you get a nice smooth finish. So 3/4 inch plywood, and they come, I mean, some places put them in smaller sheets and larger sheets. I usually get the full sheet, and then I have the store cut it down just because it's bulky and cumbersome to handle. So I'll have them do 2 cuts, and then I'll come home to my table saw and I'll rip them. And what I mean by rip them is roll them through the table saw. Now my table saw has a measurement guide, so I can cut it exactly where I want. I rip the first sheets to 5 inches wide. So this is 5 inches wide, and whatever length is, whatever to the size you've got cut down. And then I rip a bunch of those, and then I cut a 2 inch wide. Okay, so I rip 5 inch, rip 2 inch, and that gives me this layer, right? Then I go to my miter saw. I have a swing arm compound miter saw, and I go to that. And on mine, I have it marked with Sharpie, because that's what I use it for the most part. I have a Sharpie mark, so I can cut it to the exact length. So these 2 pieces will be cut to the exact length. That's this piece with this piece on top, okay? And this particular box, what did I say it was? I don't have a perfect measurement because, like I said, I just marked it on the box to fit. But the inside piece is just, 10 1/4. It's exactly 10 1/4 inches. Yeah, 10 1/4. So from here to here is 10 1/4. Okay. and it's 10.5 or 10 3/4. Is that what it is? Is it 10 1/4? That's what it looks like. 10 1/4. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, it's 10 1/4 because the hemlock, and they mark it in bouts. I mean, it's not a perfect measurement. The hemlock adds to the total. The hemlock trim adds to the total length. So about 10 1/4. Okay, so 10 1/4 by 5.5, ending up to about 10 3/4 or almost 11, and 5.5 inches wide. Okay, so you've got your two. Oh, here I've got one ready, sort of ready. Got two pieces. I've got the 5-inch size and the 2-inch size, and then I use my wood glue and I glue them together and I let them dry. Okay, and so this is my base. Then I use the offcuts or the extra bits, right? The little pieces, you know, the little leftovers. So I've cut this down and I have a little bit left. Well, it's not long enough to go here, so I'll put this here, and I cut that to, I think I did 2 1/4. I believe that was 2 1/4. Let me double check because I don't want to steer you wrong, because this is a 1.5 inch hole and I wanted it to have plenty of room. So nope, I did it in 2.5. Okay, so this is 2 inches wide by 2.5 inches long. All right, and then, so this is glued in place. I cut this at 2.5 and I glued it down flush with this, right? Flush with this, glue it down, and then I clamp it. All right, so that's where I got my little finger or little cubby. Okay, 2.5. Then I've got some offcuts from old pieces when I did the 3-inch boxes. So this is 3-inch, and I've got a bunch of these. Now I could just put this here, right? And you could put these two next to each other, right? You don't have to have this little divider piece. But I like it because I like my ink to stay nice and exactly where I want it. So that's why I put it in. If you were making this and you didn't care about that, well, then don't put that piece there. But what I do is glue this down. I use my scrap pieces, and then I'll cut this. And with my miter saw, I can get a really great cut, about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. Actually, I don't think I ever go smaller than 1/2 inch because I want it to be sturdy enough or wide enough to, yeah, just about 1/2 inch. To put here. So I glue this down, and then I cut a little piece off of this and I glue this down, and I let it glue. Okay, once everything is glued into place, you can do it one of two ways. You can drill your holes then, or you can put your hemlock lattice is what it's called. It's hemlock lattice. It's not rounded or curved, though you could certainly use that if you want to. You could put that on. The reason I don't is plywood doesn't always cut exactly as you'd like it. Sometimes it'll chip up, and a lot of times, honestly, I have to throw these away, especially using this because this plywood layer right here is so thin and it'll chew it up. So once I've got all my pieces, right, all my little pieces cut and glued into place, then I come in and I cut the holes, and I use Forstner bits for that. And I don't have the super spendy Forstner bits. And these, just depending on what I'm cutting and what kind of, they have different edges on the Forstners. And depending on which one, they last between, I don't know, 20, 30 cuts, but that's all. And then I have to replace them because they get kind of dull. Plywood is not the most user-friendly wood. And I've got several sizes, but the ones I use almost all the time for my box are the 1 3/4 inch, the 1 1/2 inch, and the 1 1/4 inch. Those are the size holes that'll fit the glues and tools that we use, okay? And then this is just how I store them. So you can use Forstner bits. Those are a great choice. You don't have to use Forstner bits. Now, I haven't seen, these are called Spade Bits, and there's a couple different kinds. And in some ways they work better, and in some ways they don't. When you're first attaching this to your drill, and you either the Forstner or the Spade Bit, you put it in your drill, right? Put it in your drill, and then like this, and then you squeeze the trigger, and it does the job. Now the nice thing about the Forstner is you can see the tip right here extends past the edge of the bit, And that means I can mark it exactly where I want it. So when I'm doing these, I don't usually eyeball it. I usually measure it. And then I made myself plastic templates because I make a lot of them. If I were making one, I wouldn't do it. I'd eyeball it. But you can see exactly where that hole is going to go. So you can make sure it's perfectly centered. Same is true with your spade bit, right? You've got a nice big bit there. Okay, so you can see here, the first thing that goes in, the first thing that goes in. But there are a couple different kinds of these spade bits. So let's see if they're 1.5. Okay, see, these come up at the edge, right? And this one is flat at the edge. So when I was just using spade bits and not the Forstner bits at all, I would start with this one because it gave me almost a smooth, perfect edge to my cut. And then I would come in with this one and it would take out the meat of it. This one, it doesn't work as well for that. And sometimes I will start my cuts with this and then I'll finish it with these, simply because this is less likely to tear the surface of my plywood, and it gets me started, and then I can come in with the Forstner bit and it does it really, really quick. But I don't have, and they may make, but I've not found one, a 1 3/4 inch spade bit. And these also wear out fairly quickly. You can see these are pretty much, they lose their sharp edge and their ability to cut fairly quickly. And then there's these canister blades. Now, I know some people use them, but I hate them with plywood. Thinner plywood, maybe it works better, I don't know. But the teeth aren't, and I don't love these, so maybe I just have the wrong kind. But they do a great job on things like sheetrock, or I don't know, maybe something else they do. But I don't really love them with wood. So you can use them, but I don't recommend them. They're not my favorite. All right, so that's the next step. I've glued these in place. I've drilled my holes, right? It's almost ready, so then I'm going to come in with my lattice, and I have this marked on my miter box, or my miter saw as well, as to how long, right, they are. Then you come in and I put glue on the bottom edge, and I glue these in place, right? And because it's not as much space, that's when I come with my brad nailer. This is an 18 gauge brad nailer, right? And it's a cordless. And I come in and I put nails right at the bottom. Now this is hemlock, which is not a super thick or strong, sturdy wood. So every once in a while they split. It just happens. I try not to go right to the edge because it's almost guaranteed going to split. But I want to make sure. Now, like these pieces, they're not going anywhere. I've got a wide surface for glue and plenty of space, and the glue is dry. But these guys, it's just a little bit different. Glue would probably be sufficient, but I put a couple brad nails in there too. Now, this is something to keep in mind. If you've got a brad nailer, awesome. Mine happens to be an 18 gauge. This is a 16 gauge, right? So you can see there's different lengths. There's a couple measurements on here. One, there's a quantity. It tells you how long the brad nail is, and it tells you what gauge it is. So when you get bigger numbers, you get smaller. It has to do with the space between an inch or something like that. So a bigger number means a wider edge. So here, like this is a Porter cable, and it is a 16 gauge. This says 18 gauge, this says 16. This isn't going to work. So you can see, look how wide that nail is. Well, here's 18 gauge. That matches my nailer, and look at the difference in those two, okay? You can see here that this is a bigger, wider nail. And for some things you need that, but for the boxes, 18 gauge works just fine. And I have 1 1/4 inch and 1 1/2 and 1 inch. I prefer 1 inch for these because that's all you really need. But you know, again, if you're using what you've got, use what you've got. But just make sure that those match. Your numbers on your tools match. All right, and then I finish those off. Then I have a finish sander, right? And I come in I've already drilled my holes, and I've already got my wood up, and I've got everything in, and then I come in, and sometimes depending on the plywood, I'll do a rough sand before I drill the holes, just to get any rough spots up. But then I come in with my finish sander, and I sand everything down just lightly, really quickly, lightly, until it's mostly smooth. The next step is the wood fill, because the brad nailer gives little itty bitty holes. Where's the one I already did? Okay, you can see here I didn't get that in far enough, but over here you can't even see it. Oh, here we go. I use wood fill or wood putty on that so that you don't see them. You just use a little bit of the wood putty, rub it in, let it dry, and then once all that's dry, then I go over with like a 180 grit and I sand the whole thing. Then I go in and I either paint it or stain it. So you can see here, remember how I told you that plywood accepts stain differently? Well, I would end up painting this one. And okay, that's not even it yet, see? Whew. Then the very last step, after they're stained, after everything is done, then I cut the bottoms. Now, you can get these non-stick shelf drawer liner things. I got these at Harbor Freight. I usually get a big roll from Home Depot. This one, this little one, $3. And it works really good. So if you were just making one, I'd say go to Harbor Freight, get a non-slip drawer liner for $3, and it's awesome. I cut this in my trimmer because it's really easy to do, and I just cut it to fit the bottom. I use Gorilla Glue. Again, I like Gorilla Glue for gluing these on. And one of these containers, I like the super glue as opposed to the super glue gel, simply because it comes out a little easier and it's still thick enough that I have time to put it on. Also, this was $7 and change, and this was $5, right? Well, so why don't you get the $5 one? Well, look down here. This is a 15-gram bottle, and this is a 25-gram bottle. So in the end, this is actually a better deal. Like I said, the gel works fine, but I prefer the Super Glue XL simply because I have plenty of time and it comes out a little bit easier and it seems to go a little bit longer. Like you can see here. This is a brand new bottle still in the container and there's not a lot of glue in there. So glue it down, put this on, and that keeps your ink box pretty sturdy. I mean, yes, you can push it and move it on my glass surface, but it holds really well. So like if I were to have this tilted, somebody was mentioning they have a tilted drafting desk that they work on, it would stay in place totally fine, unless it was a super slickery surface. All right, and that is how I make those. So if you've got somebody who can make them for you, that's awesome, especially somebody who's already got some of the materials and tools that you need, because it would be very spendy to go out and buy everything from scratch. All right, now my craft room is a huge mess, but I hope that let you guys know or give you some options. One where you can get the ephemera trays if that's what you want to do, the ink boxes. I've got, I don't know, 15 or so of these already cut. I just have to finish up the next pieces and stages of it. And so I'm hoping to list some Tuesday and maybe again some Thursday. Excuse me, in my Etsy shop, and I will link my Etsy shop there for you. And again, I apologize for not being able to take custom orders and such, but it just became too problematic. All right, thank you guys as always for watching. I super appreciate all your comments yesterday, letting me know what you were thinking about the fundraisers and such, and having to share or not share what I do with the funds. I really appreciated seeing that. Also, your feedback on the ink boxes and which sizes you think might work best for you. So thank you for being an active crowd or active audience and participating. Really can help me decide where to go. And I had another thing planned, but this was my squirrel for the day, and so I will show you that a different day. Take care all, and happy creating.